Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Rob Reviews Game of Thrones Season 3, Episode 8, Second Sons. Can't believe we only have 2 episodes left to the end of Game of Thrones, and it's kind of sad, and also, it's even more sad that we have to wait 2 weeks to see the next episode. Yes, this is very sad. It's to make way for HBO's new movie, that's coming out. I forget what it is. It has Matt Damon in it. It's like an HBO movie, but anyway, we won't see the next episode for 2 weeks, but what we can do? We can talk about this episode and all its glory. This was more heavily focused on telling a story in 3 different parts. In King's Landing, in Dragonstone, and in North of the Wall as well. So it was very good. It was a very grounded episode, which I love to see in Game of Thrones because they do so well with the grounded episodes, and it gives you a nice, satisfying conclusion at the end of the episode and moving of the plot as well, as we saw in King's Landing, which we'll be starting off there with Tyrion prepping for his wedding with Sansa. With Tyrion's character, we see that he is still struggling with the notion of marrying Sansa, and he approaches her in the beginning of the episode to talk to her and say that it wasn't me who was doing this, who put you up to this, you know? He is sharing her pain. He knows what it's like to be used as a tool, and that's what Sansa's being used, you know, to get the North. And it's very sentimental scene between them as Tyrion says to her that he'll never hurt her or harm her, and I thought that him saying to her in the bedchambers, saying that he would only sleep with her if she wanted him to, and she responded to him quite a little cold, but understandable, you know. She is being forced to marry him against her will, not her first choice to marry him, but oh well. He's the nicest guy there, so don't complain too much. And she responds to him by saying that, "What if I never want to sleep with you?" And I don't know. It was just quite cold, and I could even see the reaction with Tyrion's face, saying that he was kind of a little sad because he would never be loved by his wife, I guess, maybe. But he said then he would just wait, I guess. And you know, Tyrion's okay. He still has Shay with that, so it doesn't really make too much difference there because he still is in love with Shay, and I think even Shay is still in love with him too. You even see her reaction when she cleans the bed sheets, seeing that there was no blood there, and that has her smiling too. If you saw it, so you know, so you can tell that, you know, she still loves Tyrion a lot. So. Let's move on to the marriage part of it, with Joffrey taking away the stool, being an asshole, a dick, threatening Sansa with total intimidation of raping her at night while her husband is passed out from being drunk. Since he's killed Ross, he can do anything, and I would not be surprised if he did that to her. I would not at all. He said to her that as long as we put a Lannister in you, it doesn't matter which Lannister it is. Which is kind of true, sadly. Very disgustingly true. But Tyrion, even towards the end of the wedding, threatens to chop off his dick, which I loved, and makes a joke out of it while he's drunk. You could see the rage in him against that little shit. And it was just wonderful, glorious. And Peter Dinklage is such a great actor. Well, I say that every episode, basically. You know, so he's just so good. Tyrion as a character is so complex, and he knows how to balance it out. The writers do, you know? The writers know how to balance him out, and him getting drunk and being vulnerable, and instead of just cracking wise jokes in the beginning, he threatens to chop off his dick, which is quite satisfying after Joffrey was getting done saying that the bedding ceremony should take place, and Tyrion didn't want to do that yet because, you know, it was his own wedding. He didn't want to bed her yet. She's only 14 years old, and Tyrion hides the fact that he doesn't have sex with her towards the end. We also see an interesting discussion between Cersei and Marjorie, which was fantastic, I have to say. Marjorie is just smiling the whole time and trying so hard to do so. She's kind of terrified a little bit, I have to say, as Cersei tells her and reminds her about the song called Reigns of Castamere. If you were unfamiliar with that, that song describes Tywin slaughtering a whole entire house because they were more rich. They thought that they were more powerful than the Lannisters, and Tywin completely wiped them all out, slaughtered them all. To think that the Tyrells might share the same fate is unlikely, because they're so close and bonded to the Lannisters with Marjorie's marriage to Joffrey, and Joffrey actually likes her a lot. So it's quite fascinating to see their connection with each other, with Marjorie and Cersei. So they're both completely different characters if you think about it. Cersei can't really hide her emotions very well against her. She's done doing that. At this point she's marrying Loras. She is she has her whole life taken away from her again for the second time by her father. So Tyrion hates Tywin, Cersei hates Tywin. I don't think there's anyone in this world that actually likes Tywin, which is very understandable. What will happen between Marjorie and Cersei as Marjorie takes away her son from her? So we'll see what happens then. Moving from King's Landing, we can go to Dragonstone, where we see more of Davos, which is a rarity in this season. And we also see Melisandre and Stannis as well. As we learn in the Game of Thrones series, we know that if a naked woman approaches you and asks you for sex, you probably will have your dick either A, chopped off, or B, have a leech put on your dick. So, not a pleasant surprise. Be wary in the Game of Thrones universe if you have sex with a woman, because it could be very deadly. As we learn from Gendry, which was not really a torture scene, Melisandre just needed the blood from him to show Stannis that her god would work, that the blood of Gendry would actually work instead of sacrificing him. So what she did was she took the leeches, got the blood from him, and offered that blood to the Lord of Light to kill Robb Stark, Balon Greyjoy, and Joffrey Baratheon, all the usurpers that are still left. So, will it work? Who knows, really? I mean, technically it could, because what we saw with the freaking Shadow Baby claw out of her. So this was only a mere demonstration of their power, and will we see those effects next episode if they actually will die? Probably not. I'm not sure. We might. Anyone could die in this series. It doesn't really matter. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But we also see another discussion between Stannis and Davos as he releases him. Davos knows right away that Stannis is battling himself inside. Whether sacrificing this guy Gendry will actually help him or not. Well, if it's the right thing to do. And Davos reminds him that he killed his brother, but that's because his brother betrayed him and wronged him. This guy hasn't. He hasn't done anything wrong. You know, he's just a random blacksmith. He was just dragged into this. And I also like the change that they did from the books to here, with Gendry's character saying that, there actually was another bastard boy in the books that belonged to another bastard to Robert Baratheon, and they didn't use Gendry at all. But bringing Gendry in the fold here was a very smart move, and it's actually better than the books. So it gives you more investment into the character. Moving from Dragonstone, we can go to the Riverlands, where we see Arya with Sandor Clegane, aka the Hound. So while he's sleeping, Arya takes a rock, puts it over his head. He catches her. He knows what she's up to, and warns her if she does try, he will break her arms. Which is very nice of him, isn't it? Arya is not dumb. She's smart, so she lets go of the rock and just tosses it aside. And you know, it's very hard for her at this point because she's lost everything and she thinks she's being taken back to King's Landing from the Hound. But the Hound surprisingly says, no, I'm taking you back to your mother. I'm taking you back to your brother, of the twins, where the wedding is going to be held at. So it's a complete change of character for him after that battle at Blackwater Bay. You know, with the fire, and also even fighting the Sir Beric Dondarrion. It was nice to see that the Hound isn't a complete evil guy. You know, he's still not a nice person, I guess, but, you know, he has more character to him, more layers. And he even says to her that there's worse people out him than just me. My brother is 10 times terrible, which is completely true. We saw from Season 1 with the tournament, and him fighting his brother to protect Loras. You see that he is not better than the Brotherhood, but is willing to actually stick to his promise of taking her home. And it's strange to see that him, of all people, is the one taking her home to see her family. And hopefully we get to see a nice bonding moment between Arya and the Hound, of all people. So I hope that relationship goes further with, you know, maybe like a father figure to her. I guess the Hound isn't really close to Ned Stark in terms of duty-bound honor, morality-wise, but the Hound still has his code. The person he's hired by, he protects. But now he's in the state of being where he doesn't have anybody hiring him, so he's his own person now, and maybe we will see him establish his own character, his own persona, through this process of taking care of Arya. So we may see changes like we saw with Jaime. So maybe I really hope that they take advantage of this. In the books, they didn't really delve into this very much, and they actually really shortchanged his character a lot. I mean, a lot. We're at a point where I was so pissed about what they did with him. I was infuriated. And to get into it would be very high spoilers, maybe even for the TV show, if they go that route, which I really hope they don't. And anybody who reads the books knows what I'm talking about, and so we'll move on from there. Let's move from the Riverlands to across the Narrow Sea. We see that Ser Jorah Mormont has told Daenerys that Yunkai has employed a mercenary group called the Second Sons. This group is led by a man named Mero, the Bastard of Titan, with his lieutenants. One of them is named Pren Dahi, and the other one is named Dario. But to say, this whole scene playing out with Mero talking to Daenerys was pretty vulgar in terms of his character. He was just bashing her and calling her slut, all these things. It was just terrible to see, you know, and Daenerys was surprisingly taking it unfazed, and she didn't have her dragons there. I guess it was to discuss, I think that was on purpose, because it was for her to discuss their partnership with each other, you know, so she doesn't want to intimidate them too much, even though they look like pretty hard people to intimidate. Now we see that Mero and the other lieutenants are convinced that they should just kill Daenerys and help Yunkai out because they're employed by Yunkai, except for Darrow, because he is on the side of beauty. He says that he fights for beauty and love, that the gods have created two forms of entertainment, which is like wealth, and then the other one is beauty. He's after beauty, so, you know, he's due to. And then we see towards the end that he actually kills the lieutenants for Daenerys to try to win her. Now is he trying to win over her heart? It's kind of weird and odd to see that. play out. I don't know. I was a little bit weirded out by that guy. If he ever came over to a woman with severed heads in real life and said, "Oh, I pledge my sword with you," I'd be like a little freaked out, because, and even Daenerys kind of talks about this to him. He's like, "Well, you killed your comrades. What's to say you won't kill me?" He gives a weak answer to her, I feel, so he might I don't see him betraying her at all, though, because, you know, he's like, I guess, in love with her, especially after seeing her naked in the tub when she stands up. So I was like, oh, okay, now he's definitely working for her. So I know it felt a little bit odd, that scene, but at the same time, it established his character as a person who fights for himself and what he wants, and what he wants is her, and so he will fight for her, if that makes sense to anybody. So he pledges not only his loyalty, but the loyalty of all the second sons to her, to fight for her needs and wants. And I think he actually wants to become her lover. And how will this reaction play out between Jorah and Barristan? We don't really know that well, because they're both old guys, and he is a younger guy. How will they take to that? Especially Jorah, because he's in love with Daenerys. Secretly. He never admits it, but he is. So he'll probably cross heads with him multiple occasions. So we won't know for sure until we see it play out 2 weeks from now. Moving from the Narrow Sea, we go to north of the Wall, where we see Sam and Gilly basically trying to survive in the wilderness. They find a shack. They make a fire. Sam basically it gets on Gilly's nerves a lot, which is pretty funny. And she asks him, like, "Do you always talk like this?" And, you know, Sam just feels really useless, but until the White Walker comes out of nowhere, he protects her. He steps up to the plate, and he delivers. He uses the Dragonglass dagger after his sword is completely shattered from the White Walker, and it's great to see the White Walker come back again, because it was so cool seeing it at the end of Season 2, and now we see it again, Season 3, it comes out of nowhere, and it just, like, completely destroys Sam, and he gets tossed aside like he's nothing, as the White Walker goes for the baby. And Sam, instead of just running away, because the White Walker isn't really paying attention to him that much, he pulls out the Dragonglass dagger and completely disintegrates him. So we know that the Dragonglass dagger has a power to it. It was made by the first men, which were people who occupied the north long before people came to Westeros. So they were kind of like elves, I guess, per se, but they're all dead now, and this is the only thing they have. So Dragonglass is a rarity, and it seems like it's the only thing that can kill these beasts, these White Walkers. And Sam, of course, just leaves the dagger there. I was shouting at my TV, like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" But no, he takes Gilly, runs away. I hope he finds more Dragonglass, because he'll really need it. Or maybe he'll go back for the dagger. Who knows? So that's it for basically for this episode so far. It was a very, very, very amazing episode. The White Walker scene playing out between him and Sam, the dialogue between Cersei, Marjorie, Tyrion's drunkenness stands out as really funny. I really can't complain too much about this episode, because it was perfect. It was really good. It was almost perfect, I have to say. There was a few awkward moments between Darrow with Cersei, and I don't know. It just seems like he needed more of an incentive to help her out than just her beauty, per se. But that's his character, I guess. So I'm not sure. And I guess it would have been kind of cool to see him fight those other two lieutenants too, which I would like to see. There was a few scenes like that were just a little odd to me. Also, the dialogue scene between Tywin and Tyrion seemed unnecessary, because Tywin had this discussion with Tyrion before to put a son in Sansa, and Tyrion's like, "Okay, well, He just shrugs it off. And I'm like, well, that was kind of unnecessary. I mean, like, it's his wedding. He's drunk. Why would Tywin approach him at that moment and do that? But I guess it's to just say, hey, the wedding ceremony is going to come. Do it. Please. So, I don't know. There's like a few odd moments like that out there. And I didn't feel really wowed by this episode, but I felt very, very appreciative of everything going on. And it advanced the plot a lot because we got to see things play out, like Tyrion's wedding and Daenerys winning over the second sons, and also Arya moving with the Hound go to the twins. So there was very good scenes, and there was no Theon, which is a surprise, which is very good per se. Only show Theon when it's necessary to, and that was good that he wasn't in this episode. Along with Jon Snow and all the other cast, because Jon Snow was a very big focus in this season, a lot. I would give this episode a 9 out of 10 because it didn't wow me, because pieces are moving along in this episode, but it wasn't completely over the top stuff. You know, it wasn't complete payoffs for everybody. They're still moving towards their outcome. So we'll see that play out soon. So I think a 9 out of 10 is a very fair grade for this episode. And let me know what you think, too. Does it deserve a 10 out of 10? Does it deserve a 9.5 out of 10? Am I wrong? Am I right? So just let me know below. Comment, like the video if you want. Just give me your feedback, and I will see you guys next week, if possible. I know there won't be a Game of Thrones show 2 weeks from now, so I don't know what the content is that I'll be doing. I'll probably be taking advantage of these next 2 weeks by doing some video game Let's Plays. So if you're interested in that stuff, I know it's a different type of entertainment for you guys, but it will be on my channel. It will be in my playlists. I'll put them at a different category for playlists. So I'll separate the playlist with the video game playthroughs, separate from the Game of Thrones reviews in my channel. So check them out. Let me know how they are, and I'll see you guys later. This has been Rob Summerhays, forever and always, signing off. Till next time. Bye for now.